Okay, so this is going to be my attempt at showing a new player how to play this game. My approach will be that of doing a playthrough, right? And then anyone that's watching can just follow through. I will do my best to explain why I do the things I do and the thinking process behind my actions. Ultimately, this video is being recorded because a friend asked me to do it, and we are playing multiplayer together, so that's going to be the lens I look at this from. First off, for the planet, I will be playing on a smaller size Siwa class. It should mimic the settings we use in our own games relatively well. I will not be toggling on anything besides spread out. It should provide... actually, I'll put survival stress on too. This just means that there will be more regimes, and the reason that's good is because there's higher chances of having access to roads that lead to other cities. Spread out is self-explanatory, more space in between majors is just good. Breathing room also ensures it's a little bit more balanced. Everything else is a matter of taste, really. The settings. Do not play with these. They add a lot of micromanagement. I do not think that's good for someone that's trying to learn the game. They add flavor, be it as it may. But yeah, tech level will be 4 with Air Force. Tech 4 is good because it's also about balance. It reduces the amount of RNG present in the game, right? If you start Tech 3, you're gonna have to roll the dice on the technology you unlock. At Tech 4, there's a bit of a playing field. Development speed will be normal. Organization level will be only Supreme Command Council because then you get to choose what matters to you, right? The problem with starting with 4 or 8 councils is that your starting resources will be spread very thin at the beginning, and that will pose problems. The difficulty level will be beginner without giving AI more time to think. It should, again, mimic the usual game a beginner would have when playing this. I will be disabling epochs because, again, that is something that adds an RNG element to the game, and I just personally do not like it. Planet generation will be detailed. Fog of War will be complete after colonization. What this means is that basically you can see the geography of the planet, but that's it. When you are actually dropped into the game, you don't know what the map looks like, you don't know where the ruins are, where the other countries are, etc. One human player, single player game, citizen start. I will be giving myself one army to make this easier. 2 armies is also a good choice, but I think one will be sufficient, especially given it is the beginner difficulty. It should allow a bit more customizability. Do note, these settings also apply to the AI, right? So the AI will also get 1 army extra at the beginning. Well, extra. If you go militia only, you don't have any. So everyone will have an army, the player and the AI. All the AI major regimes will also start at tech level 4. They'll have a similar development speed than normal. The AI does not play with this, so this isn't relevant to them exactly. The difficulty level will greatly impact how both the majors and the minors operate. So I would strongly suggest you do not play regular until you can beat beginner. Going forward now. There are a few things to pay attention to when rolling a planet. Most importantly, the gravity, temperature will affect how habitable the planet is. If the gravity is too low, then the planet will have a hard time having an atmosphere, which will not be very breathable. Hence, so I'm just gonna reroll until I find something that I deem suitable. This is fine. The gravity is not too low. Temperature is okay. Solar irradiance. This mostly just affects how good solar panels are, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Planet age affects a few things. The older the planet, the higher chance of wildlife appearing, life that's native to the planet, that life dying and turning into oil deposits for you to dig up. The mountains, right? On a younger planet, there will be more mountains naturally. You can see the map size here, and you can also, at any point, you can pop this down and just look around to see how big the planet is and check the size. This is like 1 hex. So this is kind of like the zoom level you would be playing at once you start. Heavy elements will also affect like the water and generally just how much metal's around. This also affects the seasons, but that's a whole different thing. This is where the setting for the Fog of War comes in handy because you can actually check the geography. I'm not a fan of excessive rivers, and I would like to see some more tasteful mountain chains that are not just one big block. So I'm gonna re-roll this. This should be fine. It has a lot of interesting choke points, like here, here, over here, over here, and here. It should make for some more interesting gameplay. Generally, on planets that actually have potable water, the cities will be mostly around water sources, so you should keep that in mind. Like, there's low chances of a major to spawn up here, for example, and the numbers on the map are just rainfall. You don't need to pay attention to that. The temperature, this affects where it's best to farm, for example. So farming would be best in the temperate areas. You can't really farm in the tropics and Arctic, fair enough. The atmosphere pressure will affect planes, which we are playing with. And there are chances for volcanoes, which is not major, but it is a way to generate energy. You can also check previous steps on this tab. This is where we see if we can get a habitable planet and what sort of life will be present on it. This isn't very green, so I'm gonna try to re-roll it. This is a bit better. A lot of things are relevant here, but not immediately. For example, atmosphere human hazard will be the most important thing to pay attention to because this will greatly affect the hazard exposure level. This doesn't necessarily mean anything, it's just an added up value of this. The rain and seawater pH will affect how potable the water is greatly, but I think this is just perfectly fine to play on. There's some jungles over here. You can see from the distance that the greener tiles will be jungle and heavy forest. It's a lot of flat ground, should be easy, not many obstacles, easy recon. This is where we roll the colonization phase, which will greatly affect how many ruins are present on the planet. The game is pretty adamant about a set amount of population remaining after the apocalypse stage, so the amount of population you roll here will mostly just affect how many ruins you have to play around to scavenge, how much technology you can find and such. I like playing on higher population planets. It's just nice, in my opinion. It means you don't have to worry as much about certain things. The services also affect things, as does the history tab. So, for example, this planet has seen a lot of mining mining deposits, sector capital. So, the mining deposits will usually have a ruin on them. So, if you see a singular ruin hex, it'll probably be a metal deposit. Albeit the metal deposits will be smaller because they have already been partially exploited, but that's fine because you can scavenge the metal back from the ruins. I should actually mute my Discord, I think. That will do. Okay. This tab is quite relevant. This split in the population will affect what kind of regimes you find. There's minor and major regimes. The major regimes are you and your opponents, right? And the minor regimes can put up a fight, but they're mostly there to be annexed. And they can have their own cultures, and depending on their cultures, they can be stronger or weaker. Hunters, rather weak. Scavengers, a middling level. Raiders, quite dangerous, and farmers, relatively weak again, and peaceful even. It's quite important to read this because, for example, here nuclear fallout has happened, which will mean there is radiation on the planet. It's not going to be that consequential, usually, but it does mean the survivors are way lower. So if we reroll a non-nuclear apocalypse, the survivor count should be a bit higher. Nuclear fallout again. Nuclear fallout again. There is a lot of RNG involved in generating the world. The history sidebar also affects your gameplay because if you see a lot of pop-ups about companies evacuating their equipment and such, you will find less tanks and such and machinery in the scavenging department. This is still a pretty low population, I think, but it's not nuclear, so I'll just go with it. Technology evacuated. Otherwise, not much. This zone will probably not be irradiated because it's been a long time since. Okay, continue. This is the overview of how things have gone. And now we customize a regime. I'll just give it what I usually play with, generally. This color doesn't matter much as the banner. This is the unit color. I like playing with black because it's just tidy. As for profile choices, enforcement is pretty bad. Commerce is not great. The government is by far the best one. It really does come down to taste for a lot of these. You can play with whichever one you wish. I like playing with heart, for example. Although mind is considered to be the better one, but it's been nerfed recently anyways. And autocracy is by far the easiest one to play with together with democracy. Meritocracy is just not really worth it. And do keep in mind that this choice is the single one that has consequences throughout the game. Democracy being picked here will nerf your leaders throughout the entire game. Meritocracy will buff them, So you have a higher chance to get better readers. Autocracy doesn't affect it. So technically speaking, you could pick meritocracy and then just flip autocracy, but that's a lot of work. These are the cards that we were given at the start. So, first things first, we need to get our bearings and see what's what. I am not going to spend a lot of time explaining the UI. It's a lot. There's a lot of buttons. My only advice is usually when you open up a save, these tabs are popped in. You should pop them out and check and have them always on your screen. And over here, in map layers, you should always have the operational logistics. It's really useful because it means you're not stuck trying to guess if you have supply or not. For example, green is good supply coverage, blue, that's where it starts to get bad. Red, in the red zone, your troops will only get food. So keep that in mind. And gray or black or whichever this may be, just transparent. You will not be getting any supply. The troops will effectively starve over there, which is very concerning. To take stock of what we have, we should go into management and check our models. This is what we start with. So, the crash course here quickly, structural design. This is the most important one. It varies from 70 to 130. This will not change. This is the fundamental design of the equipment. You cannot improve it. It should be above 100. If you have a model that's below 100, you should make another model. This can be upped by field testing. So just pay attention to this one. The other ones can go up naturally. This one's 100, which is decent. The truck is 99, which is fine. I don't generally use buggies, personally. The anti-tank gun's fine. The artillery is amazing. And the light tanks are also okay. So, that's the planes. Planes are not that relevant. Early on, they take a lot of logistics to actually run properly. So I wouldn't be too concerned with it. Your tanks are what matters the most early on, especially. So, to take a closer look, so we have this road going this way, and it clearly leads on into this zone. We don't know what sort of regime this is, but with the Tech 4 airplanes, we can just recon and check. So that's what the terrain looks like. I am in a pretty good position here. I have a spare metal mine and one that's already given to me by the game. That's that. Do keep in mind, if you start near bodies of water, there is a low chance your deposits like oil, metal, and water can actually get swallowed by the sea tile. So if you ever start a game on Tech 4 and you don't have a metal mine, but you're near water, you should restart. Currently, our goal is to expand. The game is functionally a war game. Diplomacy is not really that much of an option with the AI majors. The AI itself knows that the whole purpose is to conquer the whole planet. So being peaceful does not serve much purpose. What I like to usually open on beginner difficulty is to just rush forward and try to get as close to the city so I can actually take it. Do keep in mind that as you move through and you take zones from a regime, they will take note of this and they will not like it. If you take hexes from even a minor regime, a major regime you cannot take hexes from, but we'll get to that. If you take hexes from a minor regime, they will be upset and they will fight you sooner or later. Another thing to keep in mind is you can't just move here. But that's not smart because this is fog of war. We don't know what's here. So what we can do is we can just incrementally move up and then be sure we do not get ambushed. And then we can just directly move up. I'm gonna have the militia units just hold the flank over here. Because this is very important, we can't afford to lose it. Whilst the actual infantry moves up. This is a zone perk, it's very important to pay attention to this, they can be very powerful. Not gonna spend too much time explaining, just gonna keep the game rolling. Because I figure, personally, it's much easier to pay attention when things are actually moving. Instead of just listening to narration for, say, 40 minutes. It's already been like 16 minutes or so anyways. You start with an AA gun in your capital. I wouldn't really move it. It's not really useful early on. So, this is the assets tab. This is what we have. The white ones are owned by you, the player / government, and brown ones are the private sector. We can keep track of the private sector by clicking on the population tab here, and we can see what they will be building next. And they are building a private industry, which is actually very good. If you see your private sector planning to build light industry, something you can do early on is, if you have a card for the fat merchant, play it. So they have an influx of money in the economy and they build it faster. Because that, getting the snowball rolling is the most important thing by far. Like industrial points, metal, they are the most important things. And the most important resource that the game does not actually mention will be bureaucratic points, which are produced by the bureaucratic office and the high command to a degree. This is by far the most important thing that you will want to maximize at all times. It is the thing that fuels your organizations. And as you can see here, we have the different councils, which are related to the tech tree. You see the tags on the techs. This is a military tech, this is an economic tech. I like opening economic because it unlocks some very important things like the power plant. You do start with solar, which is good. Here, you know, you'll have a speech. You should just pick the one that's in tune with what you picked at the start of the game. Generally, the decisions you should take are tied to ideology more so than whether it's a good decision, right? In the trade section, what I like to do early on is sell the rare metals for an influx of cash, so we can have some funds. Something to keep in mind is that we need enough money to pay off all of our expenses before we get any of the revenue. So if I only had 100 credits, I will be 14 credits short and that will be a problem, despite 91 coming in next turn. There's also... I will just pass the turn now. I've done everything relevant. I've gotten the economic council. I've moved my troops. There's not much else to do. Gonna wait for resources to pile up and then choose something to build. In this screen you can see like the unit movements of the AI. It can be quite stressful sometimes. This is like the overview and the usual events. There is a hive of arachnids nearby somewhere. These are 5 point cards. So, For the cards, there is an important distinction. There are the normal cards, which take political power, which we see up here, right? And they're created by our councils. Our councils create the cards, and then we play the cards using political power. There are also special cards, which are called fate cards. They take fate points, which are quite hard to come by, so I would be very stingy in how I use these. There is no reason to play any of this. This is a private asset for quality of life. This is a zone perk for quality of life. This is extra population, but we have more than enough currently. This will decrease unrest in a zone, but we don't have any unrest. And I do not believe... We have a card for just 1,000 credits immediately. And then this will give us a really good leader. There are fate cards which are bad for you, but you play them and you gain fate points. So, for example, my troops here, they have 59 morale. So if I play this card, now they have 47. They took a minus 20% hit as per the card, but that's fine. The enemy we're fighting is not particularly threatening, it's just a minor regime we're not even at war with yet. We gained a new militia in the zone. You can check the militia situation somewhere in here. Over here you click on the militancy level. So there's a maximum size of militia troops a zone can provide, and there's the current size, and it tells you what it's gonna make next. Militia is not that useful, I'll be honest, so you shouldn't concern yourself with it too much, but it is nice to have early on, because otherwise you don't have troops, basically. The artillery is very slow to move. So what I will do actually is I will go to Utit admin and I will upgrade it to a motorized artillery battalion. It's a motorized artillery battalion. And now we go to replenish troops and we make some trucks. The next turn the trucks will be given to the unit. Currently, we don't have much option for things to build. We are at an energy deficit, which is not great. The plane doesn't have very good range. That's probably due to the atmosphere. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build a barracks. This will give quality of life, but it will also make it easier to put down revolts, because we are playing autocratically, after all. Usually, Hex barracks will most definitely have enemies on them, so never rush in. Over here you can see the borders of the regimes in the Fog of War. We can send spies to these to unveil the Fog of War. The roll will be made by the commander of the SHQ. Supreme Command Council, not SHQ, of the Supreme Command Council. It is quite easy to confuse them. There is the Supreme Command Council, which generates cards and makes your political power, actually. So again, bureaucratic points are very important. And there is also the commander of your SHQ, which is quite important to how well your military is doing. I'm gonna call my secretary. You can ask for a new organization at any time from your secretary. You don't need to wait for the decision to be on your desk. I'm gonna immediately ask for a model council. Here we see the need for a leader for the economic council, which we just made. To put it in simple terms, the cap goes from 1 to 5 and governs how quickly a leader learns. And then these are their actual stats. They will never overshoot their stats, more or less. So this guy, he learns very quickly, but he's not very intelligent, so he's not very useful for our position. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leverage that Sage card I got to get a really good leader. It's not actually that good, wow. Huh. This guy will actually be better in charge of model council. So each council position has different skills that are relevant to them. In the situation of economic council, the only skills that are important are science and inventor. Everything else does not matter. Whereas model council will take technician and inventor. Because inventor will be the discovery of new technology and new models, and technician will be the designing of said models, whereas science is just the research of technology. I'm just gonna keep playing my junior cards until I get something actually satisfactory. I have not gotten anything satisfactory, so I'm just going to... Am I going to postpone it? Sometimes it is better to postpone a council position if you don't have anyone that's suited to the position. But in this situation, I think I'm just gonna appoint a loyal guy that isn't very good and I'll just replace them later. Research priority can just be 0 because we don't have any technology discovered to actually research. And then we'll lock it. Economic policy is just not relevant early on. Prospecting can just sit at an idle 10%. I wouldn't have prospecting lower than 5% and higher than 20% as a rule of thumb, and then we'll just focus on discovery. Here we have a decision which adds militia to the profile. Certain leaders like militia and certain leaders don't like militia. This is the SHQ commander. I'm just gonna take the meddling option. I'm not very interested in the militancy stat, so I'll just take the one that upsets the least people. This is gonna be the budget allocation of your bureaucratic points, so usually the Supreme Council has more of them by default, but I'm gonna skew the numbers a little towards economic for technology sake. You shouldn't change the funding too often because the leaders will be really upset over even a few percents of funding. So it's quite unfortunate that it's a rather static affair. I am going to... Alright, so this construction of barracks takes 200 metal and 100 industrial points. Whereas the construction of this mine takes 125. I'm going to wait until next turn to complete the barracks halfway. And I'll tell you why immediately. As you can see, the AI is very happy to encircle us even though we're not at war, because truly they don't like us encroaching on their land. Despite not even declaring war on us. So this is going to be a farm regime, so they're not very threatening at all. Gonna quickly assign the Sage to the model council because his technician role skill is just amazing, flat out. I'm gonna... Okay, so You can see the models that you can unlock over here. You know, you just go to management for a lot of things in this game, so keep this in mind. And we can discover medium tanks, APCs, aircraft with one engine. This is the parenthesis, like one engine, two engine, four engine. Bazookas, mechanized motorbike. But I just want to design a better light tank, so I'm gonna keep this at 60 for now. And I will immediately ask to build upon the same light tank we have, because it is good enough. It's 105. And I will give it a bigger howitzer. It starts with a 40, we'll give it a 60. It starts with 25 plating, we'll give it 50, and we'll also up the engine, so it's not too slow. You can also go into the blueprint section, select a model, create a new blueprint, and then toy around with the settings, and then see, for example, the engine, how well it will fare. For example, I could take the gun down and the armor down to make this faster, but that's not my interest here. I need something that can punch through into the city. Certain models will have movement costs. So this has a plus 20% movement cost because its engine is suboptimal. So each movement on a tile will cost 20% more action points. As you can see, the motorized artillery is much faster. I'm gonna just encircle this real quick. They're gonna start starving now because they cannot break out unless they declare war, but even if they do, they're not strong enough to do that. The AI was actually scared of the militia stack and ran away. So I'm just gonna take that now. This guy can move down here. I'm actually gonna redeploy the AA gun up here to defend the metal mine. I'm just gonna move it next turn. Strategic redeployment is very useful because it uses your logistic network to move units much faster, basically using trucks and trains. You can always like hit current points to see the strength of your logistic network. The shortcut is L on the keyboard. I always just use L, it's just so much easier. And then hide units has the shortcut 1. It's also the button here. You can always just hit 1 and L to clearly and nicely see your logistics network. Something to keep in mind about logistics is that it's basically managing the flow of a river, right? So over here we have a truck station which produces 800 truck points and 100 action points. Track points are the logistical points themselves, and action points here are going to be the distance they travel. You should really consult the manual on the logistic rules, but as a rule of thumb, on dirt road, trucks will expend 10 AP for every tile, so this asset will provide full logistics with no penalty for 10 tiles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it reaches the city perfectly. If you do not have the range, you will have to build a supply base which will add action points. So if I built a supply base and I upgraded it to level 3, I would double the range. Mind you, you have to build a supply base on the 10th hex to actually get a bonus properly. Like, you shouldn't just build a supply base next tile over, because that's just a waste. You can also just upgrade the truck station itself, because each level of truck station has more action points. So a level 3 would actually have 11 hexes range. Just gonna turn this back on. The militia is also very bad stats wise. It's definitely something you only use on the defensive. Whereas, look, the infantry already has better stats. It has 62 soft, 124 defense. Recon. I'm gonna recon over here actually.
Birds are in the
As we can see, there is. This is extra bureaucratic points, so it's actually quite a good pickup. But on to the barracks. We have enough IP in stock? No, it will take 100 IP. So that's 120 to play with. And the metal facility will be 125. So I'm actually gonna wait another turn for that to properly fulfill. Commander offering services. If we go to war with 3943. 3943. What? 39. Actually off the city by one tile. Okay. This minor regime is in our path of expansion down the road, so I'm just going to accept, and it's also good for our profiles. The miners will also ask you if you are going to fight them or not occasionally. If I was to say yes, we would have a non-aggression pact of some sort, basically. In this game, when you are dealing with minor regimes, your zone of control of your units will take hexes. If you have a peace agreement with a miner, you cannot take their hexes without going to war with them. Major regimes follow different rules, but we'll see that later down the line. I am not going to accept peace because ultimately I want to conquer them later. And also mind suppresses the heart profile, which is bad. We do not want that. These are in a circle, basically. I don't mind if fist goes up because heart will keep it in check, but I will avoid at all cost mind, economic, commerce, and democracy going up. Because there is a overview here that shows that nicely. If only I could find it. Profile overview. So you can only have 100 maximum, so they're gonna suppress themselves. For example, if I have 40 mind and 60 heart, and I gain more heart, mind will actually suppress heart back down until both of them add up to 100. Same for heart and fist and mind. So it is critical you lower these and up these, right? Because in the profile section of management, you can see the bonuses you unlock for every stage. The reason why government is very good is because its first unlock gives you a whopping 40% bureaucratic points extra. The next point will give you 40% extra industrial points, and then the fourth one will give you another 60% of bureaucratic points. The industrial point bonus will apply directly to your public industry, making it much better. Do keep in mind that the governor relations also affect this, so you can have a really happy governor in charge of a city, and you'll just get more things for free, essentially. It's a non-linear scaling. If you reach 100 opinion, you will get 25% to everything. Everything is moved for now. You should not have the HQ on the border with anything hostile. You should never keep this in the fight, because this is the actual card that holds the leader, and you don't want the leader to die, because then you have to get another one and they won't have the same amount of experience. But in this scenario, it is just militia that's encircled, so I'm not stressing about it too much. And I will sell. There's no purpose in selling them because they're much too cheap right now. I will buy 2 machines, because I will actually need 2 machines to build the metal mining facility. Let's pass it down. I'll aim not to have this be too long of a recording, but it is a lot of information to cram in. Here it tells you what you discover. The Economic Council, with its prospecting, will be able to discover new deposits in the zones you own, and this is the pop-up you get when that happens. And a metal deposit is actually quite good. This is just like basic tips, but they're not very useful, I'll say that much. This here, that's very close to the other metal deposits. And I'm gonna start building the metal mine. The reason why I want another metal mine is because I want a higher level of industry, and industry takes a lot of metals. The reason why I also built the barracks is because as your civilization score goes up, you will be able to build better bureaucratic offices. As you can see, it's locked by civilization level. Over here, the civilization level is decided by taking these scores and dividing them by the city level. The city level caps the level of the assets. So looking at it, if I had, let's just use the industry as an example. Industry is not locked behind civilization level. So I have a level 3 zone, I can build a level 3 industry, and the higher level the assets, the more efficient they are. As you can see, it goes from 50 IP to a whopping 200, then it goes to 450 at level 3 even. So higher level assets are much more efficient when it comes to the amount of workers they use and the amount of resources you need to make them. It is important to have a few zones that are quite high level for the purpose of industry. Bureaucratic offices are also locked by the city level, so I could only have a level 3 bureaucratic office in this zone. But I also need to pay attention to the civilization. The different quality of life scores will actually affect the zone also. The more health quality of life you have, the better the natural growth of the population will be. The population growth takes into account the amount of people, the health quality of life, and the general civilization level. The higher the civilization level, the more cultured and intelligent the people, the less people will be born. With that started, I might check what's the model. Next turn I'll have the light tank, and I am producing enough IP to offset the metal mine production, so that's pretty good. What I'm actually gonna do is I will call the governor, and I'm going to change the zone orders real quick. I'll give them a public budget. This is good because it's very easy. You can give them like 20 credits and they'll be much happier for it. And then I'm gonna drop down the salary and bonus. You don't usually need a recruitment sign-up bonus for a zone if it's loyal, because loyalty is what affects recruitment most often. Do keep in mind that you feed every single public worker and recruit and soldier and colonist. So if I was to up the recruits per turn, that would cause a few problems. I also like using recruit if shortage never fire, because it's much more efficient in recruiting workers. I like to go all in on this aspect. It's not necessary though, it's just a preference of mine. You see the worker happiness will drop down, but it's not below 50, so it's not that big of a problem. I will pawn off the rare metals for some quick cash, as I will the metal and the fuel, because I just have enough of it and that's fine. The economy isn't doing too hot, but it is what it is. Gonna move the artillery in position for the city, and this too here. This is gonna be another unit of theirs, which is probably having issues with supply too, because it doesn't have a connection. This is another mine region. So I'll have to go through here to actually have a border, and I'm gonna stop that by doing this. And these guys are going hungry, so that will debuff them with morale. Something to note is that logistics are very important to the utmost. If your troops don't have supply, they will just die, and that's that. Supply is by far the most important thing. Here we gained a level in one of our profiles. The light tank model is complete. And if we go here, we can see we got Strength of Will. This unlocks some cards for us to play with, and a unit feat. Oh, the unit feats are just automatically added to your units here and then. You don't actually need to add them or anything. Some of them are pretty good. The Bunker Busters are great because they reduce entrenchment. The Meritocratic Champion just gives a chance to kill a unit. Some of them can also be bad, like the Firing Squad, just straight up killing one of your units if they retreat. So over here, this is how you raise units. You can raise them anywhere you have the necessary supply, but most often you'll have to raise them in the capital. This SHQ is also listed here. This tile is where all of your resources are stored and where all of your leaders are present. If you lose this tile, if you lose your capital, you lose the entire stockpile of resources, and most of your leaders will just flat out die in the defense of the city. Do not under any circumstances lose your capital. So, raise the formation, independent, battalion level. You can have higher level formations. This is gonna affect the amount of people in them. You should just focus on battalions. Now, there is a very important distinction. OHQs will be armies, right? As you can see, this is the light infantry brigade. We also have a MG infantry brigade here. As you can see, the difference is this is more light infantry, this is more machine guns added in, sprinkled in, but the same manpower. Basically, OHQs are superior to independent brigades because they have a leader which will buff the units. So this leader, with his skills over here in the war section, will buff all of these cards of this color if they are in range. You can always check the range by checking HQ power over here. If your HQ power is under 100, you should either move the HQ card up or get them closer together. As we can see, the enemy unit actually went through one of our control tiles over here to meet Mac up. But I'm gonna try to cut it off again. And that should do as well. These are free folk settlements. They're very important. Population is king. Population is a resource, much like industry, metal, and bureaucratic points. These are the 4 resources we need to focus on. This will be a policy speech. It will also affect our word score. Word score is incredibly important because it affects leader loyalty. So never take on something that you cannot do. I am confident I can do the bureaucratic points one. Within how much? Round 19, and it is currently round 5. That should be easy enough. I'll just need to build a hospital in the capital to achieve that. Victory points it took me a while to know what they actually are proper. You can check them in reports in victory overview. Here we see a list of all of the majors in this game. Here is my country in numbers 4, and here's RDAI. We're middle of the pack. But it's not that much of a difference, honestly. The victory score will be an average in between population and planet. So we have 4.9 of the population, like 4.9%, and we have 1.5% of the planet's surface. We add them together, we divide them by 2, and we get a victory score. I am not confident this is actually going to be like 7% of the victory score, because we are not expanding very quickly. Keep in mind that the free folk actually count into this calculation. So the population percentage will be an add up of your free folk, your workers, and your civilian population. You can check these details here on the regimes tab. If you have intel on any other minor or major, it'll show up here. You can even see your military report with the size of your army. Back to the light tanks, I'm just gonna raise... I can't actually raise a light unit due to no industrial points. I'll raise it partially. I'll just buy the bullet and raise it partially. You can only raise units if you have at least 50% of the necessary items. I can't raise this because it's only 14%. And everything else can stay as is. Logistics, just do traffic sign, select a zone. Gonna block all logistical points going in this direction, with the exception of points that are already pulled by assets or troops. I'm gonna do it again here, left, right, pull points, turn off this. And if we click P on the keyboard for preview or use the button here, we can see that it will send 100 points here, 100 here for the assets, and the extra 12 will be for the units. Over here it's 8 points going over here for the militia unit, and 4 points going to the flak, apparently. That should be enough. The game knows automatically how much is enough. You don't need to stress about it. And in comparison, we'll have more logistical points going to the actual front line, which is very important. Select the government goal. I will... What will I do? Gapmark requests friendship, say no. Gapmark is these guys over here we're currently skirmishing with, basically. And that put us at war directly. Because it doesn't actually show up. It was something... It was a different sort of question than the one we asked with Berkshire. It's probably on the recording. The caliber of our artillery is 105. It's really good artillery, so I could... the maximum caliber of artillery actually goes up to 300 millimeters. But you need to have a high enough civilization score to unlock that. Same for engine size in some higher level tanks. So it is important to be like a civilized nation because it actually unlocks certain things. I misspoke, actually. It's not tied to civilization score, it's tied to technology level. Technology level, it's explained here, is just the average of the amount of technologies you have researched. So I will build upon this highest caliber. Padded and virus suits, very important. Always give your units better armor. As we can see here, our infantry is just in plain shirts with an automatic rifle, so that's not very good for their hit points. And I will just pass it now again. The nice thing about the video format is that if the flow of information is too fast, someone can just roll back or maybe pause it while they follow through with the steps like how I already enumerated. And the sheer amount of information densely present in the video means it's not a waste of time, essentially. As much as I enjoy the other videos that are present for this game, some of them can be quite long, and I genuinely do not want to sit there for 3 hours watching 4 turns pass, and it's also part of the reason why I was asked to actually record this. Soldier morale is low, but that's not a problem. No machinery left, because the last machinery was used in building the metal mine, and this is a reminder for the promise. You can also always just see your promises in the demand overview. This is either promises made in a speech or a demand from a faction. This is one of those events, where a part of the workers in your capital are upset about the wage, and they're striking. We play autocratic, so what I do is I always have an independent machine gun battalion garrisoning every city I own. Importantly, I'm gonna move these tanks away, and then I'm gonna do a crackdown, because you can actually lose troops in the crackdown, and if we were to lose tanks in the process, it would be absolutely silly. It's a unit decision that sometimes happen, and we're just gonna do the one that's ideologically in tune with us, and there we go. Art is up to 60, so we can eventually unlock Joint Struggle. Heart is really good for a beginner because it adds loyalty bonuses and makes the workers happier and the leaders happier. So you don't have to deal with a lot of revolts. It's why it works so well with autocracy, because if you have autocracy, fear actually helps in lowering unrest. Fear is a good thing with autocracy, to a degree. So if you play autocratic heart, the amount of rebellions you'll have to put down will be quite low, and the only choices you really have to do is cracking down on protests. And with the government backing us up in the industrial and bureaucratic point section, it's a pretty good build for a beginner. People would argue that Mind is much better for the research, or maybe even Fist for the military bonuses. But this is just nice and stable and allows you to do your own thing at your own pace. Mind you, I am approaching this from the perspective of a multiplayer game casually played with friends. I don't think it is fun to go out of your way to optimize the fun out of the game, so to say. It's something people are guilty of. Because our logistics are strong enough here, because we did our own signs, we can replenish troops directly into the unit. Did we move it yet? We did. So now we'll just replenish the 2 tanks in. Careful to do the correct ones. There we go. The tank unit will be more than ready to help take the city. These guys are dying. There used to be 400 rifle militia, now it's 300 starving. This one's also going hungry. Gonna keep moving militia to keep cutting it off. That's a bigger unit actually, so that's even better. I'm not afraid because this is a farmer and their units are quite bad. If this was something like a slaver, I would be quite concerned, but as it stands, it's perfectly fine. The metal mine's finished. The light industry is being built. As you can see, they didn't even go into debt for it because they have a lot of funds. The public funds are also helping, for example. That will be a big boon. And also, I just started the hospital now. Still not able to build bureaucratic offices. I'm also gonna play the gladiator card on the capital. This will increase the quality of life. It provides entertainment and also also get the security outpost for even more quality of life, and the security outpost got put down all the way down here. Something to keep in mind is that if you have a high level zone that's lacking a certain type of quality of life, like health, security, education, you will be getting bad events. So it's important to keep these things going up. Otherwise, you're just gonna keep getting bad event after bad event, and it's gonna be dreadful. Rare metals going up in price, that's good. I'm going to use that money to buy more machines. Something to note is that ruins are incredibly valuable because they hold oil, metal, and rare metal. You should always do your best to use these resources. Each point of scavenge is one resource. So this scavenging asset over here is giving us 58 metal, 43 oil, fuel, and 14 rare metals, which means it's depleting the scavenge points every turn by 115. Mind you, this can be buffed by the governor's skill, governor relations. You can see them by just double left clicking the asset. I like to raise independent machine guns. Also to deal with borders. It's not gonna be a full unit, it'll be partial, but that's good enough, and we'll just reinforce it next turn. Pass the turn. It's beginner difficulty, so being in a hurry about taking the city isn't a major thing. The minor regimes cannot advance technologically, but they can produce more units, which can be a relative problem if you wait too long in killing them. Is a technology discovered, here's the artillery research, designed rather. And looking at the tech screen, that's all we have really for now. Militia pluck. The advisor is not as important, so I'll just say yes. I'm not gonna assign a target. There's no reason to do so. And over here, I would actually like to make a truck that's better, because this is actually kind of bad. Not only because the score is below 100, but it's also kind of slow. So over here we can check. If we give it a medium diesel, it'll actually have a minus AP cost. The reason why in the blueprint design it says a light diesel engine has no movement modifier malus is because the blueprint section assumes your scores will not be below average. However, this does have a below average engine score, hence that problem. An easy way to skirt around that is to just make a brand new design or build upon the same design and just give it a higher level engine, and it'll be good. These build scores, again, they go up with field testing, so the engine design will also go up. So new models based on this model will lack this movement debuff, but we'll get there as the game progresses. There's no need to go into all of that right now. Moving up the light tank. Something important to note is that independent units, as I've said, do not benefit from the bonus of a leader. However, if you see a unit not move the zone of control, that means there's an enemy somewhere here, by the way. However, you can assign up to 2 independent units to 1 OHQ. So this independent light tank battalion is now assigned to the 1st MG Infantry Brigade, so this guy will buff the unit. Again, yeah, there's an enemy here most definitely. Either of these axes, I think this one. Gonna replenish. And I'm gonna scout it out. Nearby, close enough. It's not this axe, it's this one most definitely, okay. It's important to have troops, just making sure your road doesn't get cut off, because that'd be catastrophic, really. This hospital is gonna get built eventually. And in the background, metal is stockpiling. Okay. It is a good idea to hold off on selling resources if we don't have to, because it allows scarcity to happen, which means the price climbs up, so you get more bang for your buck, so to say. As we can see, the infantry unit from the miner is not able to break through. Worker happiness is low, don't care. The enemy unit moved away, so we'll take this mountain, and they moved even further, so we'll just push it back even more. I'm not worried about this, because these are the borders of the miner we're at war with, and the neutrals or any other miners will not walk through their borders to get to us. So that's a nice way to have a small buffer over here. This recording is actually stretching. I'm just gonna confirm the same. They'll usually ask you to change this. I always just confirm the same choices I already have. You can also just say no changes, it doesn't matter. The recording is actually getting a bit long. I'm gonna cut this here for now.